especially especially how this Indian literature or this novel is so famous that it has been translated into many languages, and also it has got many awards. He has received Jnanapith Award for the Sanskar. And Kannada language is the oldest Dravidian language, and it has three periods: Old Kannada literature, medieval Kannada literature, and modern Kannada literature. If we go back to the old and medieval time, we will find a different type of writing. But after the British rule, we see changes in almost all the writings of Indian writers of different languages. And U.R. Ananthamurthy also tried to uh, write many novels, poems, even essays, taking into account the present social scenario. In that, he tries to mention the customs and rigid orthodox rules of the society, and how the, you can say, colonized or the minorities, they try to come to the mainstream, and how there is always a social imbalance basing on castes. So in his view, society is a mixture of many castes and creeds. There should not be any superiority or inferiority complex among the people. And thus, this novel, Sanskar, is based on that. But before I start the discussion of the novel, we should go for the background study. In old Kannada literature, we have, that was in the 12th century, and the most famous poet of that period was Pompa, who continued to write from 902 to 975 AD. And in the famous Kannada language, his first writing is Vikramarjuna Vijaya, also called Pampa Bharata. Vikramarjuna Vijaya, also called Pampa, Pampa Bharata. So, after that, there are also Ponna, another important writer, Ponna, from 939 to 966 AD. He also wrote a lot of things like Santi Purana. Santi Purana. And then we come to medieval Kannada literature. During medieval time, say in the 13th century, they used blank verse. Please note down whatever is necessary. They used blank verse in the writing, and this period gave birth to several genres in Kannada literature with new forms of composition coming into use, including the blank verse. And metres like Bhamini, Satpadi, Sangatya, and Desi, they were there used as if we use iambic pentameter in the sonnets. So these are used in the Eden poems. And the works basically are based on religion, like the Hindu, the Jain, and also other secular themes. And the famous poet was Harihara, and he established this sonnet style called Ragal. And Raghavanka, another poet, popularized the Satpadi, six-line stanza, Satpadi. And Harishchandra Charita, that was written by Raghavanka. And that was a famous poem, Harishchandra Charita, based on the life of Hindu mythological character Harishchandra. You might have heard the story of great Harishchandra who gave his child to God. And the work is noted for its intense attention to human ideals. And Jainism was also discussed in the then time in the poems and writings of medieval Kannada literature. Then comes Kumar Vyasa. Kumar Vyasa has been the most famous and most influential Kannada writer of all times. His lifetime work The Karnata Bharata Katha, Karnata Bharata Katha Manjari is the famous writing of Kumar Vyasa, and he was a devotee of Krishna. Kumar Vyasa ends his epic with the passing of Krishna in the 10th chapter of the Mahabharata. The work is easily, the Kumara Vyasa's Karnata Bharata Katha Manjari is based on the stories and episodes of Mahabharata. And in my last class, I had told you these two books, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are fundamental texts. And almost many writers, they refer to that. And all over the world, many writers wrote basing on the themes and episodes of the Mahabharata. Then Kumar Vyasa was awarded with the title of Rupaka Samrajya Chakravarti, Emperor of Metaphors. Rupaka Samrajya Chakravarti, or Emperor of the Metaphors. Bhakti literature is the literature also composed by the dasas or saints around 15th century, singing the glory of God through poems. These poems called padas and were usually of 10 to 20 lines. They express the desire of the bhakta or the devotee to be one with the God. This form of poetry is called bhakti literature, and that was written with complete dedication to God. This form of poetry was highly amenable in musical composition and exposition. So they are always accompanied by musics. This music evolved into the highly sophisticated and codified Carnatic music. The Haridasas the Haridasas spread the message of peace, love, and bhakti in their Dasa Sahitya. So, medieval Kannada literature based mainly on two things. One is religion, and the other is devotion. So, almost all the poems they were based on the faith on God. Then we come to modern Kannada literature. Modern Kannada literature begins with the arrival of English language through colonial administration. Like any other modern literature in India, the British rule, it influenced not only our life, it also influenced our intellect, our creativity. And in Kannada also, people tried to write after the influence of British literature or British language. And this literature is called Navodaya Sahitya. Please underline those who are writing. Navodaya Sahitya, and this means new birth of literature. Navodaya Sahitya. This is modern Kannada literature. Navodaya Sahitya. It means literally new birth. And in Kannada literature, in late 19th and 20th century, this Navodaya Sahitya became the dominant writings, and the writers and poets they came back from the antique area or the ancient region to the modern region with the influence of the British writings. After a period of dormancy in the face of British occupation in India, again they woke up and started writing in new style. This period saw great poets like B.M. Srikanthaya, B.M. Srikanthaya, K.V. Puttappa, popularly known as Kuvempu, Dr. Bendre, and Mesti Venkatesh Iyengar. So all these, there are many poets and writers. It is very difficult to name them in a very short span of your class. But these are some important poets who and writers who contributed a lot in the modern uh, Kannada literature. Kuvempu is a case in point who was convinced by the professor of British origin that he should write in his mother tongue. Kuvempu went on to become a Rashtra Kavi. Another poem called Kuvempu, he based on romanticism. He based his poems on romanticism, and he is compared with Wordsworth. Who is Wordsworth? He compared with Wordsworth of romantic literature, and he followed the style of writing of the British Romantic poets in modern Kannada literature. Then came post-independence period. In post-independence period, the major genre that prevailed was mainly poetry and novel. And most importantly, thoughtful elite people or intellectuals, they devoted their time to write such books which would elevate the status of the colonized. And under the British rule, we were very much suppressed, oppressed, and we were voiceless. We had no guts to speak. We had no liberty to live. So, under such circumstances, this new thought came. And in post-independence period after 1947, with the promise of freedom, the new genre sprouted in Kannada poetry, and the torch bearer of this tradition was Gopal Krishna Adiga. Gopal Krishna Adiga was the torch bearer of a new Kannada poetry after independence or in post-independence era. And it was very sophisticated in style because it was influenced by English literature. And then came Nabyuttara or postmodernist writings in Kannada literature, which is called Nabyuttara. In the last 50 years, it has been related to social aspect, the Nabyuttara. Nabyuttara is a category of poems which is written after the postmodernist Indian literature. And so the poets and the writers who were highly influenced by the British literature, they always wanted to make their theme to elevate the common people, the downtrodden mass, to come to the forefront, to come to the mainstream. And that was the purpose of postmodernist writing in Kannada literature also. It was not only confined to Kannada, it was there in almost all the languages, all the regional languages of India, in almost all the states of India, where people struggled to elevate themselves to come to the mainstream. Then came novel and Kannada novel. Novel as a genre, I explained you yesterday. Novel is a voluminous writing. It has almost all the characteristics of drama, like character, plot, conflict, and say the end, and there is no action and dialogue. But novel is a story which is largely imaginary. It is a definitely is not very short like short story, and it is though it is based on fact, but it is highly imaginary. So Kannada novels in post-colonial literary culture became very important. And colonialism became the driving force to write novels as models or movement. And almost all the writers of postmodern time, the novelists of postmodern time, they focused three important things. They were the social scenario and the race to rise, and the third is to abolish caste barrier. And there was a wrong notion and there was a disparity or there was no understanding between classes, down classes people or low class people or say scheduled caste people or any such people who belong to low social background. They were never allowed. I will give you one example of Britishers who traveled in the railway compartment all alone. Even if the compartment is blank or empty, no single Indian was allowed inside. Even in common parks also, Indians were not allowed to enjoy that park facility. The Britishers would enjoy that. That was the problem.
Ma'am, you are not audible.
With uh, society then and
Ma'am, your voice is breaking, ma'am.
people not audible.
Now, Yes, ma'am. Now it is.
Am I audible
Now
Yes, ma'am.
audible.
clearly?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So within the knowledge system and ideological framework, got it? Got it, dear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So with the knowledge system and and ideological framework imposed by the British, the Indian middle class began to develop some form of patriotism. And patriotism or nationalism or dedication to the nation was the main theme of every writing, be it poetry, drama, novel, road show, whatever it is. It was replete with the thought of patriotism or nationalism. And that is why the creative writers who wrote in that time, they inspired the people to fight against British rule. That was the scenario. So the another thing that happened in the writings, that was the spiritual greatness. The Indians, they are very God fearing. They always trusted on God. One day we will achieve. So Gandhi spoke about the non-violence because he had strong faith on God. So spiritual greatness was also another theme of such novels. And in almost all the writings, we find there is an amalgamation or combination of cultural ideals of East and West. Understood? Of East and West. And early Kannada novelists, they they formed a different team called Saraswata. So if you want, you can take down a short note on Saraswata. Saraswata, Brahmins. They were called the up class. They were not in the mainstream. They were above the general people, and they had been given 100 missionaries. They were given the opportunity to learn something new. That was their priority about language, about literature, and education. I told you soon after the 1835 Education Act, many people were privileged to learn English, and those who were not privileged also were eager to know English. And with that, they could take the help of regional language as well as the English language to create something new. And Saraswata was a group, and it was there to to say lead the literary stream. Then we come to modern novel or early Kannada novelists. They are very few, and then we come to the time of Anantamurthy. And just I have to skip. You know, importance of Kannada novelists. Kannada novelists, they were in 1930. Kannada novels began to flourish. Many important Kannada novelists emerged during 1930s. The greatest of them undoubtedly was Dr. Sivaram Karantha. Underline this. He was another Jnanapith awardee from Karnataka. Dr. Sivaram Karantha. He had written more than 60 novels, imagine. In his novels, he continued the reforms, traditions of the then time. Although his treatment of traditional society was very complex, yet he was critical about the existing present social scenario, and he always propagated change, and he had written 60 novels. So write down Dr. Sivaram Karantha. Dr. Sivaram Karantha was one of those important novelists of 1930s who was also Jnanapith awardee from Karnataka, had wrote had written 60 novels had written 60 novels. He was the torch bearer He was the torch-bearer of the new stream of thought, where he challenged the social maladies of the then time. Almost all his novels he tried to articulate some kind of scientific religion, economy, individualism. To name a few of his novels, Kaman Duddi, Kamana Duddi, Comana, Kamana Duddi, Marali Maninje, Marali, Marali Maninje, Mannige, Mugida Yuddha, Mugida, Yuddha, Yuddha, and many more. These novels, they focused on the detail of insight and empathy. Insight and empathy, the changing life in pre-independence India. He also dealt with post-independence Indian politics and focused on the moralistic terms, the corruption of people. Corruption of the people. Karantha's novels also dealt with humanism, nationalism in largely cultural terms. And he revolutionized the then culture. And emphasized on the fact that the artist had some role to play. And that role is to reform the society by examining and telling the story of the success and failure of individuals. Because he knows that individual is the source of change. And all his post-independence novels depicts post-independence politics as a story of corruption and dishonesty. Now we come to the biography of U.R. Ananthamurthy. I don't want to give all the notes, but I will say all the important things that may be pointed out. U.R. Ananthamurthy was born in 1932. Those who are writing, please make a heading of U.R. Anantamurthy, great man. Are you listening to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Make a heading U.R. Anantamurthy. Udupi Rajgopala Acharya Anantamurthy. Udupi Rajgopala Acharya Anantamurthy was born on December 21st, 1932 or 21st December 1932 in a remote village of Tirthahalli Taluk in Shimoga district of Karnataka. In Shimoga district of Karnataka. He was born in the Shimoga district of Karnataka. He began his career as a lecturer in English in 1956. And in 1966, he earned his PhD in comparative literature, mind you. In 1966, he earned his PhD in English and comparative literature from the University of Birmingham, UK. From University of Birmingham, UK. Now about his awards, you can read it, but few I am naming. What was he? I cannot just describe. He has been a visiting professor at a number of foreign and Indian universities like University of Iowa, 1975, Tufts University, 1978, University of Hyderabad, 2001, University of Cornell, 2000, University of Pennsylvania, 2000, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, 1993, and also University of Tübingen, Germany, 1992, and Shivaji University, Kolhapur in 1982. This was the man U.R. Anantamurthy. He was chairman, National Book Trust, Delhi, President Sahitya Academy, and also chairman, Indian Institute of Social Sciences, New Delhi. About his awards, he has received numberless awards, numerous awards, both from the government and also academies and other academic institutions for excellence in different fields. These include the Masti Award in Literature, Gyanpit Award in 1994, and the Padma Bhushan. Just name these important awards. And about his lecture, he had given many lectures in many symposiums, many conferences on politics, culture, literature, and art. Some important lectures of his are Culture and Destiny at Bharat Bhavan, Indian Literature in the University of Madison and Chicago in 1985, on Indian Society, Culture, Politics, and Literature at the University of Birmingham, Alabama in 1987, on colonialism and Indian literature at the University of California, and on art in the modern age at Bangalore University in 1989. In one of his interviews, he said that English should be glamorized or glamorizing English. And currently, you know, his texts are widely read almost everywhere in almost all the universities of the world. In Kannada, he had written a lot of books, lot of short stories, poetry, novels, play, and short stories are many, poetry also many, but novels are also 5. But the last novel, the famous novel for which he got his award, Jnanpith Award, that is Samskara, which was written in 1965. We have this Samskara in 1965, and also play Abahane, Abahane, and many more plays. And also he edited journals. What he has not done in literature. And he had many publications in English and English translation. And the other works in English include essays on various topics like literature and culture, concept of man in Kannada literature, and why not worship in the nude. So these are some essays he has written. And his film version was done from Sanskara. And also two of his stories, Bara and Ghatasradha. Ghatasradha, these two are picturized. And Sanskara is also picturized or made a film. So this is the wide and large and vast career of your Anantamurti. He is a critical insider. He uh, he doesn't write for the pleasure of the people. He enters into the characters and studies them accordingly, like Shakespeare. And so he calls himself the critical insider. That was his standpoint of writing. And Anantamurti in contemporary India is the name which is uh, famous not only for his writing but for his severe indictment of Brahminical orthodoxy. He was very much critical about Brahminism, and the main theme of Samskara expressed his rage at the oppressive tradition of Brahminism that is decadent and burdensome, and describes the spiritual struggle of an individual as he tries to forge a new identity for himself. In Bharatipura, 1973, his central character, Jagannatha, a Brahmin landlord, returned from England after completing studies, wants to usher in a social revolution by leading a group of untouchables. So his characters mainly, they are the Masiha for the society who herald changes. And in Bharatipura, the prime character is Jagannatha, and he is the man who has come back from England, but he is trying to make a group of untouchables, and he wants them to enter into a temple so that Brahminism will be thwarted. The ego of Brahmins will be thwarted. So there was always a class feeling, and Brahmins used to consider themselves super. And most of his writings that was targeting to offend and to demean the practices of Brahmins in the society. So Jagannath, the main character of Bharatipura, and his mission against Brahmins, was the mouthpiece of the society. People strongly favored his ideology in this novel. So in Bharatipura, the social revolution envisaged by Jagannath and fails. The social mission revolution fails. And in depicting this failure, Anantamurthy is writing a critique of the limitations of the radical middle classes, claiming an exclusive and sympathetic right to change the nation, as Professor Nagarajan puts it in his introduction to the English translation of the novel. See, Bharatipura was also translated into English by Professor Nagarajan. So here only, through translation, the ideology, the theme, the main bias of the writer, and the main motto of the writer, what he means to say, what he wants to reform, all these things comes from the original text and is spread to the broader world by the help of translation. And Anantamurthy is perhaps best described by the term critical insider, and in his essays, being a writer, literature and culture, he himself says that there would have been boundless compassion
for the poor and disinherited in India. So those who are poor, those who are disinherited, those who don't have any right to live in this vast society as normal human beings. So he launches a mission against this tradition which confuses the social values. And talking about how others have viewed him, he says, I am described as a rebel against the caste system, a votary of individualism, a modernist against tradition. Write down, please write down. Anantamurti has been criticized as a rebel against the caste system, inverted comma begins, a rebel against the caste system, a votary of individualism, a modernist against tradition, then three dots. I am a lapsed revolutionary. I am a lapsed revolutionary, lapsed, L-A-P-S-E-D, lapsed, lapsed revolutionary. So Anantamurti was a person who not only opened the eyes of the readers, his plays, his movies opened the eyes of millions regarding the existing caste system and humiliating system of suppressing the poor and the needy. And this revolution made him a hero, not only in the literary world, in practical life also. He had been associated with many such organizations where he wanted to continue as the torchbearer of reformation. Torchbearer of reformation. His stories represent usually a great change in the characters. A great change in the characters. So this is all about the background study of Anantamurti's career. Now questions, some few questions, please note down. What are the major works of Dr. Anantamurti?
Ma'am, can you please repeat?
Yes, what are the major works of Dr. Anantamurti? What is the main theme of Bharatipura? Another thing I want to tell that the text is not enough. If you read a text about a particular writer or of a particular writer, it will limit your knowledge. So expand your reading and read all the works of Anantamurti in order to assess him properly, to examine and investigate the style, the matter, the insight, the motto, the message that he has in his books. So this book is not enough. What I mean to say is that reading one book of a writer is not enough to study one writer's style or thought or theme. What my point? So you should expand your reading. You know what form of genre or what is the genre of sanskara? If you are anybody is writing, please make it a separate paragraph. Samskara. It is a narrative. You know, in this book, the writer is giving
a wonderful description of a society where things of very common value or common things happen, but we never react. But the characters instilled in this text or portrayed in this text, or those men who have been enrolled as characters in this text, they react, they rebel. Understood? So, this is the narrative about socialization. Sanskar, this novel will train you to look at the major feature of the narrative, particularly focalization and intertextuality, and finally to examine the form of structure of the novel. After reading the study material, you will definitely find out it is not only me. You read the study material again and again, you will realize how vast was his knowledge and how wonderful was his style of your Anantamurti. And then we come to the narrative of samskara. It is written in three parts: part 1, part 2, and part 3. Chapter 1 is a sad beginning. In modern novel, we find very natural description. There is no color, there is no linguistic bombardment. What happens exactly is described by the novelist, because we are all part and parcel of this text. With the consent of casteism, how a man called Naranappa is dying, and Brahmins are not ready to go for his funeral or help his funeral. Uh, in this sad moment, a continuous argument goes on, and finally, some people of the association of Naranappa, they come forward to go for the funeral rites or conduct the funeral rites. It has some biology, it has some fact behind it. So Samskara is the story of a Madhava Brahmin colony, led by Pranesacharya, a devout Brahmin, very much well read in scriptures and Shastras. And the name of the colony is Agrahara, was Durbhasapura. The name of the place of the colony or the place where the Brahmin people are staying, that is called Durbhasapura. And it is a Madhva Brahmin colony. Pranesacharya is the head of it. And he has an invalid wife, and he is taking care of her for the last 20 years. He had followed a routine life, and so he takes a bath, says prayers, cooking for himself and his wife, giving medicines in time, and reciting sacred legends before the Brahmins assembled in his house. And he thought his salvation lay in his willing performance of duties to his ailing wife. This is basically the base, the starting of the novel. And the main character is Pranesacharya, who is the leader of the place, Durbhasapura. Understood? And when you read the novel, you will find out. Have you read it? Has anybody read it? Has anybody read it?
No, ma'am, not
No,
yet.
ma'am. No, madam.
Not yet.
You should read it, huh? Very vast. It will be difficult to complete in the classroom. I'm just touching main points. Anyway, so Pranesacharya is the leader of Durbhasapura Brahmin colony, Madhva Brahmin colony. And he was a devoted Orthodox Brahmin. He does his duties towards his sick wife.
But when this Naranappa dies, he has a concubine, Chandri. And she comes and tells Pranasacharya about the death of Naranappa. But the Brahmins are reluctant to do the funeral work. And in order to facilitate the Brahmins, Chandri offers all her gold ornaments. Still then, there is no change in their views. For the funeral expenses, he has already given her gold to change the entire situation. Brahmins now feared that if this will be the donation of this lady, Chandri, then anybody else will be tempted to do this funeral rites. And then the Brahmins, they not only they delayed the work, but they counted what bad works, what evil doings Naranappa had done. Finally, Dasacharya's suggestion, there is another Brahmin called Dasacharya, and he suggested that the Brahmins of Parijatapura, who were, yes, the Brahmins of Parijatapura, who were smarters and were not so strict in their orthodoxy, would friendly do the work of funeral rites of Naranappa. And Pranasacharya had already taken the gold. So he would decide to go to that. He would do, of course, study sacred books to find a way out of the dilemma they faced. The Pranasacharya is the main character who is not only good, very much notorious, though he is the leader of a Brahmin colony. After taking gold from Chandri, he makes unusual delay to go for the funeral rites. So he takes time and says that I will see this book and that book to find out a way as to how this cremation will take place. And then Durvasapura Brahmins, they were also interested to seek help from Parijatapura Brahmins. So there are a variety of Brahmins of belonging to different category. The first chapter refers to several other texts like Rasayana's Manual or On Love, Kamasutra, Matsagandha, the Fisher-Oman in Ravi Verma's painting, and Manu. Make a complete list. So I told you, focalization and intertextuality is the main attempt of the writer. And here intertextuality means while writing this book, he has referred many texts of different writers of different times. And they are this: Vatsana's Manual on Love, Kamasutra, Matsyagandha, the Fisher-Oman in Ravi Verma's painting, and Manusmriti. These were referred by Anantamurti while writing this. Then Pranasacharya had a very nasty attitude towards Naranappa. He always listed what bad doings, evil doings he had done. And he never wanted to conduct the funeral rite. So gradually this was delayed, and the ultimate decision was done by some other people who were ready to cremate Naranappa. Then we come to an ugly relationship of Pranasacharya with Chandri, who was the concubine of Naranappa. That was caught red-handed, and Pranasacharya was exposed, and people disliked Pranasacharya. In part 1, we find that the picture of the Brahmin Agrahara of the Baspura and its decadent morality. The top Brahmins belonging to the Madhava group, followers of Madhavacharya, also Pranasacharya, but they were extremely hidebound and strong believers in purity and rituals. But the degradation of Pranasacharya, who was not only a leader, he also fell in love with Chandri, and his sexual union with Chandri doesn't really come as a surprise. The writer throws several hints along the narrative. The reference to Sankara's hunger for a full experience of sex and his entering the body of a dead king in order to enjoy himself with the queen anticipates Pren's own repressed hunger for sex. So, the character of Pranasacharya and his full of morality, or how he is entangled with love and sex with Chandri, the concubine of Naranappa, presents him as a nasty character. And in part 1, we find the spiritual evolution of Pranasacharya takes place. He really feels bad, humiliated, ashamed, and tries to change himself. So Chandri is the lady who was very helpless because uh, she was Naranappa's concubine, and she could not resist the need of cremating the body of Naranappa. So she gave whatever the gold she had, and later all properties of Naranappa also she wanted that that should go to the monastery. And in part 2, we find that there are festivals, and Pranasacharya is also caught. His image is tarnished, and people discuss about him. So Anantamurti discusses three important features in this novel. So the novel is so that you should read it at home. I just cannot describe everything here, but I am giving the important points. The narrative is having three important features. First is focalization. Write down. Focalization. Focalization means we shall focus on two critical terms in connection with the narrative. Focalization here means, according to Gerard Jennett, in his narrative discourse within single inverted comma, the focalizer, Focalizr. The narrator is the writer, but the focalizer is one who is the person whose vision is being verbalized, verbalized by the narrator. Focalization, this term, was preferred as being more abstract and more technical. And focalization also means developing. And it assigns an autonomous role to the focalizer. Focalizer means the character whose role or whose personality is being verbalized by the narrator. That is called focalization. And here focalizer is Pranasacharya. His character is being dealt in detail. Then we come to intertextuality. Another thing you should mind, the novel is a third person narrative which is told by an omniscient narrator. Novel is a third person narrative. It sees all the characters, all the events, and describes it one by one. So the narrator is an omniscient narrator. He is all everywhere present. The narrator is also the agent who sees. He could be called the narrator focalizer. He could be called the narrator focalizer. There are also other characters apart from Praneshacharya like Garudacharya, Lakshmanacharya, Dasacharya, Burga Bhatta, Naranappa, but we don't stay long in their minds. The whole attention is focused on the character of Praneshacharya. It would have been easier for you if you would have read the novel earlier. Kannada novel. The first chapter is a remarkable piece of writing and it is a dramatic scene. It contains two crucial events, the death of Naranappa and Chandri's offer of gold to meet Naranappa's funeral expense. While the first sets novel in motion, the second exposes the greed of the Brahmins of the Madhava colony of Brahmins. So how decayed the Brahmins are, how greedy they are, how they exploit the common people in the name of tradition, how orthodox is the culture of Brahmins. So that was the focal point of the novel, and your Anantamurti hammers at the nasty social situation, custom, tradition, which should be badly changed. And for that, he uses his book as an instrument to consider Brahmins as decayed and dishonest. And that will elevate other caste people to the mainstream of the society. Then comes intertextuality. Intertextuality. Intertextuality means, write down.
Ma'am,
Yes,
will you please explain in short what is samskara?
samskara means reformation, change
The
for
huge,
better.
uh, the what is the huge story?
About questions, I have been told that we will discuss when the class will be over. Before that, 10 minutes will be given to all this. Okay, let me complete first. I am talking
Okay,
of intertextuality. We will discuss about what is sanskara towards the end of the class. Okay.
okay, ma'am.
Shreyasi, you are asking, no? Shreyasi or Asa?
Asha.
Okay, we'll discuss it just before the class ends.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Intertextuality. Intertextuality is simply a work exists between and among other texts through its relations to them. This is called intertextuality. See, intertextuality means the writer has referred to so many texts before writing this, and that is called intertextuality. References are made to different texts. Intertextuality means, write down. Intertextuality means references are made or ideas are extracted from different texts within this text. Within this text. So intertextuality appears to be a special feature of the narrative texture of the novel Samskara, because there are, listen and understand, because there are many references to Indian tradition in the form of myths, and characters from epics. And also we find Western references. The relationships, don't write. Now listen, the relationship between Pranesacharya and Chandri is modeled as a social problem, but it is also extracted from the relationship of the Saint Parasar and the fisher girl Matsya Gandha. This story is mentioned in the Mahabharata. So, all these things are intertextual. A cluster of references connect the Chandri Pranesacharya relationship to this archetype and to other relationships. Do you want to ask me the complete story of Sanskara? Asa?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I was.
No. You read this is the overall story that ultimately the group of Brahmins, they come to help the funeral of Naranappa, which is against the will of the Brahmins. So the prime focus point of the novel is to change. That is called sanskar. Understood? The whole novel cannot be dealt in detail. I am just touching the storylines. In part 2,
Excuse me, ma'am.
when you read the book, you will understand.
Yes,
In part
excuse
1,
me.
there is an allusion to yet another beauty. In part 2, you will see.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Focalization you told.
See, focalization, I will come to that just before the class ends.
Okay,
Because
okay,
director
ma'am.
has
Okay.
said there will be
Yes.
no questions in the middle. They are
Yes,
recording, no?
yeah.
Okay, they're recording. So they said only questions will be asked just before 10-15 minutes of the class, before the class ends. Okay, we will discuss then. Focalization and what he says, sanskar, all that we will do. Okay, in part 2, there is an allusion to yet another beauty celestial in origin, the time of Urbasi. And Pranesacharya's relation with Chandri is also referred to the Urbasi and Pururaba story. So this is called intertextuality, and the other was focalization. Focalization, I will definitely come to that person. Wait. Okay. Then there is about the structure of the novel, how the novel is structured. I told you that there is a graph of movement of the plot. The plot will be introduced, exposed, then it will rise, then it will reach its climax, and then it will fall, and ultimately the end. So here the structure of the novel is it is a organized whole. As you will see that there are 3 parts, and all the parts, they speak a different movement of the plot. In part 1, it consists 10 chapters and ends with the failure of his Brahminical mission at the Lord Maruti temple and sexual union of Naranappa with Mistress Chandri. In part 2, it has 6 chapters and ends with the death of Pranesacharya's invalid wife, and his decision not to return to the Agrahara but to walk wherever his legs take him. Whose? Pranesacharya's. Part 3 consists of 2 chapters, one short and the other very long. He is a spiritually agitated Pranesacharya traveling with a half-caste young man, Putta, and arriving at a new equation with himself. The guided tour of the fair and the festival that he undertakes with Putta makes him aware of a demonic world of passion and sensation. His uncertainty ends his decision to go back and confess to the Brahmins and hopefully to begin a new life with a new identity for himself. So the structure of the novel is very harmonized, very organized. In all these 3 chapters, 3 important changes take place. And we are introduced to the main character Pranesacharya differently in part 1. Then in part 2, we also find another sad event in his life about the death of his wife. And then in part 3, we see that he has become completely changed and is moving with a person who is not very of high class, called Putta, and his mind is changed. His orthodox mind is changed. So, about the structure of the novel, the structure tallies with the theme. Write down. The structure of the novel, just wait for a while, I'm taking a glass of water. 2 minutes break.
Sure, ma'am.
Yes, I resume. Are you all there? Are you all there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So, what I was saying about the structure. Now, write down. The structure of the novel, write a short note. The structure of the novel Samskara, Samskara, Samskara is very organized. All the three parts speak about three different changes in the life of the protagonist or the hero. In the life of the protagonist or the hero or the principal character called Pranesacharya. Three phases of transition he experiences. In all these three chapters, three parts, not chapters, three parts. Other characters who are related to Pranesacharya they surround him and his role is
Related, ma'am, who are related to Pranasacharya? Then,
they surround him, but his role is pivotal. Central. The movement of the theme or the plot is guided by the action and motive
of the main character called Pranesacharya. His relationship with Chandri opens a new venue for discussion or comment. Because it has thwarted the Brahmin orthodoxy the Brahmin
Because it has
thwarted, Thwarted, thwarted the Brahmin orthodoxy represented by Pranesacharya. Religion has become a constraint, a constraint for religion has become a constant for the society to grow and to refine. The structural unity of the novel however the structural unity of the novel however establishes complete social practices by challenging Pranesacharya. Now about themes. This is all about structure. About themes. There is always a risk of identity. Uh, the identity of the character is very important.
Ma'am, about theme, there is, but after that,
There is always a risk of identity. Identity. The quest, the mission to be socially identified as a class or as a luminary is there in the mind of Pranesacharya. He shows off his supremacy over Brahmins also and also non-Brahmins. And his notorious practices, his sexual loopholes, and his disgraceful works in the society as a Brahmin sometimes makes him humiliated, ashamed, and he doesn't accept it. But when all his faults, all his drawbacks come into light, he realizes actually how he had succumbed to sins. Being a Brahmin, he has succumbed to sins. So he wants to keep himself away from the society. Then he meets one boy who is a low caste man called Putta, and in his company he finds some better thoughts, and gradually his journey starts towards a new birth. That is called quest for identity. The first theme is quest for identity of the principal character called Pranesacharya.
Acha, do you
Do you all have syllabus with you? Asa?
Which
Do you all have
which syllabus, ma'am?
this syllabus? All these text syllabus? You have no?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. With a
So you
book.
should have read.
with
You should have read so that it could have been easier for all of us to explain and understand. You should have read because this is very new.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
You should come prepared so that our class will be more interactive and it will be easy for all of us to carry on. Understood? Anyway, the next theme is asceticism and eroticism. Next theme is asceticism and eroticism. All surrounds this character, Pranasacharya. His relationship with Chandri is an example of naked eroticism, and his fascination towards ladies is also regarded as eroticism. And the concept of dharma, kama, moksha, all these he wants to achieve through the liberation of worldly life. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And by dharma, he means righteousness, and by kama, he means love of pleasure, and moksha means uh, liberation from worldly sins, worldly life, and also artha means material gain. So all the Hindu culture, all the Hindu ethics, they always preach this dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are four basic tenets of social well-being. One should stay restrained from all this. There should be no greed for material wealth. One should be away from this love of pleasure. So, Pranasacharya is the failure in all these four grounds. Understood? This is another thing. And he said asceticism and eroticism are represented allegorically and in opposition to each other. And the love of pleasure, which is there immensely with the character of uh, Pranasacharya, is not praiseworthy. It destroys the magnitude of a hero. And all hero or all principal characters should be of a high quality, which Pranasacharya is not. Understood? So this is called eroticism. Brahminism and anti-Brahminism. Another theme is Brahminism and anti-Brahminism. How? Brahminism is represented by Pranasacharya in the Madhava Brahmins colony, and anti-Brahminism is represented by the character of uh, Putta and also other people who don't follow Pranasacharya. So, from the very beginning of the novel, we find that Brahmins are imposing their rules, their laws of social conduct, social practices on other caste people. That is challenged here. And different responses to sanskar has come by saying that it is an anti-Brahmin novel. It is an anti-Brahmin novel. Most of the times, the writer or the narrator is criticizing the practices of the Brahmins. The other theme is tradition and change. Tradition is to practice the old things, to respect the old tradition or old social practices. Tradition is social practice. And to change means to leave it backward and accept newer things. That is change, which happens in the character of uh, Pranasacharya with the help of Putta and Chandri. Thinking of a social revolution and fixing characters like this, Pranasacharya, Chandri, Putta, and Naradappa, Anantamurti is trying his best to establish samskara or reformation in the text of the novel. The episodes, if you read the novel, you can realize how the episodes go side by side with the purpose of the novelist. And Anantamurti, his characters, they are from very common background, ordinary background. And they don't belong to high class people, but there is a caste bias in almost all of them. And that is why there is the purpose of this novel is to reform the social practices and make the society classless. Make the society classless. Then we come to characters, some major characters. First character is Pranisacharya. He is also an example. Pranisacharya is an example of distortion of values and highly sexual. He doesn't resist his instincts, thinking that he is a Brahmin. He should have restrained himself in many occasions, but he doesn't do that. And one good thing that appears in his character is taking care of his sick wife. He is a learned man. He is a crushed jewel of Vedanta philosophy and has won many awards in recognition of his learning. But when there is any crisis in the Brahmin colony, he doesn't find any way. He has already tried to find the pages of his books and sort out some solutions, but all his books fail him. His ample knowledge in the Vedas and the Vedantas never prepare him as an exemplary man. He may be learned, but is not a good person. His activities, his dislike to cremate Naranappa is a negative attitude towards duty. And he is greedy. Greedy means he had taken gold from Chandri to do the funeral rites of Naranappa. And Naranappa, also is a Brahmin. But Pranasacharya doesn't appreciate his relationship with Chandri, but he himself is involved with this. So the character analysis of Pranasacharya is he moves to soul searching and self analyzing, introspection. He moves to self searching, introspection, and self analyzing. Also, he is a person who suffers from uncertainty and anxiety and fear. He behaves like a ghost, as if a ghost is making him afraid. He is always in the phase of hallucination. And the Brahminical past moves away from God and into the world of ordinary men. So, Brahminical past he has to forget. And gradually he is mixing with the ordinary people called Putta. His physical needs of pleasure and hunger and those of other senses. He wants a share in all the good things of life. Look at his selfishness. He doesn't sacrifice anything for others. He is always interested to get the lion's share of all good things of life. He also has a close look at the violence and cruelty of passion in ordinary life. he overcomes his fears and gradually tries to change himself. But he is not successful in getting himself changed or getting a new soul or rebirth because his past life is replete with full of or replete with sins and dishonest work, though he was very learned in Vedanta. Then comes the character of Naranappa. Naranappa is very poorly designed and he is also very vulnerable to sexual affairs. And he doesn't appreciate any quality life. He was an enemy of Brahminism and did not consider Brahminism as practiced in Durbasapur. Muslim friends he had also, and that was not appreciated by Pranasacharya. And also, he and his friends are involved with other sins like robbing widows and plots evil work with black magic men. He is one of your Brahmins. And almost all the activities of Naranappa are against Brahminism and good social behavior. He is not good. He was a member in the Parijata drama group who finally wanted to make the cremation of his dead body. He had donated one harmonium to the group and he himself was a good drummer, Naranappa. Then Chandri,
Ma'am, drummer means who plays drama, right?
drummer. He was a
Drummer
drummer.
means
One who beats the
drummer
drum.
means who. Achha, okay.
He beats the drum. He's a good drummer means he can beat the drum well. Whenever Naranappa was alive, when Naranappa was alive, he was very troublesome. He had never given peace to anyone, not even Chandri. So Brahmins hesitated to cremate him. And Brahminism was not a sect of respect for Naranappa. But the death of Naranappa caused a lot of chaos in the Madhva Brahmin colony.
Chandri is Naranappa's voluptuous low caste mistress. Look at the adjectives. Chandri is Naranappa's voluptuous low caste mistress who later mates with Pranesacharya and initiates a process of radical change in him. So Chandri was the concubine of Naranappa, but she was also open to Pranesacharya for certain relationship. In accordance with the allegorical scheme of the novel, she was also pitted against the Brahmin wives. She is described as a perfect beauty. She had sharp eyes and she is a choice object of Naranappa. And anybody would fall in love to see her. And that was what happened with Pranesacharya. She is a classical heroine for this text, as the writer or the narrator describes her. In a forest, when she was caught while love making with Pranesacharya, that triggered a lot of discontentment among the Brahmins. But she was indifferent to all this.
So Chandri is a sort of very loose woman, hallowed and romanticized, and she is earthly and immoral. She has no morality at all. No chastity, no morality. She remained untouchable only because of her loose sexuality. Chandri is also very generous. When Naranappa died, she had given all her gold to Pranesacharya for the cremation. The cremation of Naranappa illustrates another quality of Chandri and her common sense. When she realizes that his body had started rotting, she decides to cremate it and proceeds to do so with the help of a Muslim friend of her lover. Next morning, she packs up her belongings and leaves for her home in Kundapura. Look at this woman. When Naranappa dies, she sacrifices whatever she had as wealth, called gold. But when the Brahmins did not agree, so she herself got ready to cremate the body with the Muslim friend of her uh, beloved, that is Naranappa. She never honored Brahmins. She always wandered around and she remembers Naranappa sometimes. She also is a good friend of Putta. She represents nature and Acharya represents culture. Chandri is undefilable. She is compared to a running river which can never go dirty. Born to prostitutes, she was an exception to all rules. She was ever auspicious, delivered, the one without widowhood. How can she defile a running river? These are the language, or these are the words, adjectives, which are given by the writer about Chandri. He compares her with a river, running river, and she can never be spoilt. She is a prostitute, though she is a prostitute, but she is never dirty. That is the character of Chandri. Then comes Putta. Putta is a special creation. Why he created Putta? Anantamurti. And only because he is a half caste, he has none of the inhibitions of a Brahmin, but he is a free man. And he can be called Varna Sankara. And he has no caste bias. So, in the latter part of the life of Pranesacharya, Putta guided him, and ultimately there was a drastic change in the mindset of Pranesacharya with the influence of Chandri and Putta. This is all about the characters. Then question. Question 1. Please write down. Yes, who was asking about what is sanskara?
It's me, ma'am.
Yes. The title of the novel is Sanskara. Okay. If you question what is the meaning of this sanskara, the dictionary meaning is change for better. Even in our regional language, we use this word sanskara. Sanskara means you inherit a good cultural background. You inherit a good, rich background. So, samskara is a word which has many such meanings. Means making sacred, making pure, purging sins, And also one particular activity is called funeral obsequies or the funeral rites, that is called samskara. So the title itself, here is a note for you. Please write down. The title itself has two important intentions. First is samskara means the cremation of the dead body. First is the cremation of the dead body, which we find in the opening lines that Naranappa is dead and they are all waiting for samskara, but the Brahmins are not ready to help them. So the body is going to be rotten, and ultimately Chandi takes the help of a Putta or a one Muslim friend of her beloved and tries to go for the samskara of the body of Naranappa. Second meaning is change,
What, ma'am?
sanctification, change.
I can't hear.
Sancti-
Sec
Second meaning is change,
change.
purgation. You switch off your mic, so there is echo. Na, you can listen to me. When mic is on, nothing will be audible. Okay. So samskara in the second sense means change, purgation, sanctification, sanctification. sanctification. Sanctify, sanctification or purification or performing any rite of ceremony. There was a subtitle of this title that was a rite for a dead man. Rite, R-I-T. When Ramanujan translated this book, he wrote a rite for the dead man. A rite, R-I-T, for the dead man. A capital, R capital, dead, D capital, M capital. The most concrete meaning is the funeral rites of a dead man. But unfortunately, this Naranappa is disposed of unceremoniously by his mistress Chandri with the help of a Muslim friend. The title Samskara acquires a further dimension of meaning when Naranappa professed anti-Brahminism is contrasted with the unbrahminical conduct of the Brahmins, of the Agrahara. So the title of the novel is The Transformation of the Character of Pranesacharya. The transformation of the novel of Pranesacharya, which is a kind of rebirth. The activity and the mindset of a Pranisacharya undergoes a great process of change. That is samskara. The implication of the title is understood in different contexts. Is understood with the contexts, different contexts. Basically or primarily, it is the samskara of the dead body of Naranappa. Primarily, it is the samskara of the cremation of the dead body of Naranappa. And then the transition in the mind of Pranesacharya. And then the rebel of or the revolution of in the mind of Naranappa against Brahminism or change. So this can be interpreted in different contexts. The title should be justified while writing answers. Please justify the title of the novel from different angles. That will give you more marks. So that the examiner will see that you have understood the novel from the title of the novel and I have tried to establish it. So this is all about the novel Samskara. Write down some questions, then we'll go for the discussion. Question number 1. Justify the title of the novel Samskara. Sketch the character of Pranesacharya. Sketch the character of Pranesacharya. Number 3. Sketch the character of Naranappa. Sketch the character of Naranappa. Justify that Chandri is a great woman. Justify that Chandri is a great woman. What is the next question? What is the focal point of the novel Sanskara? So these are the probable questions from this section. And how, now I will give you a few lines about how this novel is relevant in the present context. How? Who can tell me? It bridges the gap. This novel tries to bridge the gap between lower class and higher class people,
and also tries to dominate over the orthodox practices of Brahminism, which is no more existent, which is no more existent. Brahminism is no more in vogue. Brahmins are like any ordinary men and women. They are no more honored in the society. Society has changed. It has undergone a samskara. So it has thwarted the supremacy of Brahminism over other castes. The main purpose of the novel is achieved. And of course, the cremation was also done by Chandri in a very low profile way, which has led to the creation of this novel. So, in the present context, this novel is very relevant, very relevant, because it has initiated some changes in the society which must or which should be there in every society. And there should be no supremacy of any caste, all are equal. It was given the message of equality to the mankind. So Samskara captures a moment in India's transition from tradition to modern times. So this novel had changed the moment of India's transition from tradition to modern times. And Brahminism in India, so deep rooted it was, is no more there. The problems raised in the novel and try and connect the characters, they all belong to the very common social setup, which is like us. Any normal person can be the hero or the heroine of this novel. And there are certain other things which we may point out. That this novel is not only a novel, it is not only simply a novel, it is a social ethics. It is a social ethic in which many things are mentioned to focus, to reflect the social practices. So this is all about that. Now I will question. Who was questioning about focalization? Yes. Who was asking about focalization and intertextuality? Who was asking about focalization and intertextuality, please? Was anybody?
Someone of us was asking about this point.
Yes, so who was there and he's not saying anything? I think Prasant. Is he there or has he left?
Ma'am, he left the class.
Maybe.
Acha, any other question? To answer my question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your idea? Yes, Prasant?
Ma'am, will you please throw some light on the question you told us? Justify that Chandri is a great woman. I just want to add one point and then please tell us more about it. Chandri gave all the ornaments she had, and to the persons who were dealing with this ceremony function and all. But nobody got ready. Actually, firstly, she was very selfish. But when she came to know that nobody is going to go for celebration, then maybe out of selfishness or maybe one side of love, she donated all her ornaments to that particular person. She was ready to give it to Praneshacharya. Do you think it's the change of her personality, and does it relates with Chandri as a great woman?
No, no. Actually, her activities, when we study the character,
Right.
she is not great. But
Hmm.
the writer himself describes her as, though she is a prostitute, she is not dirty.
Hmm.
She gives pleasure, but she doesn't demand anything. Selfless pleasure she is giving. And Pranesacharya, she is giving a high value to the character of Chandri. Though she is not great, but she has been portrayed great by the writer. She sacrifices everything for Naranappa, but again she is involved in nasty affairs with Pranesacharya, and she has the courage to cremate the body of Naranappa with one of his Muslim friend when all the Brahmins did not cooperate, even after taking gold. So she is not, as a lady, she doesn't fail. If you read her character more and more, such questions will come. Go deep into her situation and how she handles it.
Uh, yes, ma'am. Thank you. And what about focalization? Will you please
Yes,
some light?
focalization I was testing for you, Prasant. You know, focalization is done by the narrator. Who is the focalizer? That important character who is uh, interpreted, much discussed, much narrated, over portrayed. All these are done by the narrator. Then that becomes focalized. Focalization. Excessive light on one particular character is called focalization. On his problems, his dealings, his affairs. Who is that? Pranesacharya. So he was the focalizer, and the narrator focalized on him. Understood? That is called focalization. Focalization and intertextuality. Actually, focalizer should be the writer, but it is explained that that character who is much discussed, much highly overportrayed, they are called the focalization points. So they are the focalization or focalizer. I can give you some note on focalization. Don't worry. Short note you write down.
Please. Thank you. Please.
Just a minute.
Ma'am, I have a question from the previous year
Please.
question paper I saw that discuss the text samskara as an allegory.
So many microphones on, I can't hear anything. Yes, ask.
Ma'am, I was saying that when I was just discovering the previous year question paper, then I saw a question related to samskara that discuss the text samskara as an allegory. So, what portion will come in this answer, like in this question of answer?
Allegory, when there is a extract of different stories from other texts, that is called allegory. We refer to different texts. So here the relation between Pranesacharya and Chandri is, he told na Parasara and that Matsyagamna story, referring to different stories which are already mentioned in different texts and again included here. Understood? That is called allegory. Allegorical interpretation. You have study material, so detailed description is there. Allegory
Okay.
means to include different other stories in this particular book.
It means,
Okay.
ma'am, the stories which are mentioned in our syllabus, we have to somewhere compare.
We refer to different stories of different books. Understood? And we embody them in this book also. That is called allegorical. Referring to previous stories. For
Ma'am,
example, suppose you are writing something, just a minute. For example, suppose you are writing something, And in that you have referred to the character of Sita and Ramo and some incidents in the forest. That is called allegory. That you are referring to. Understood? Yes. Tell me. Who is there?
Ma'am, focalization, please, ma'am. I also didn't
I
understand it.
said just now, no? Focalization you write down. No more explanation, you just take down. Focalization means the person whose vision is being verbalized. I gave this note. The person whose vision is being verbalized by the narrator. Focalization is special attention to.
Now, whose vision is after that?
Focalization is special attention to a particular character. And his connected affairs. And here focalizer is the narrator. There is difference between the narrator who tells the story and the focalizer is one whose story is being told by the narrator. Verbosely told or much discussed by the narrator. That is called focalization.
I can't write, ma'am.
You couldn't write. When one particular person is much discussed,
Ma'am, I have a request. Will you please give us print notes about focalization in the PDF form? It will be very helpful. Actually, some points are coming, some are going. So, if it's a earnest request, if you can.
see, I think I am not allowed to do any such thing over phone or in
Oh, no,
PDF
no,
to you.
no, on WhatsApp. If it is feasible and possible, only then.
No, I don't have anybody's number. I am not allowed to do this.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
But I will advise you to go to Google and search for it. Okay. In the context of
Oh.
some study.
Ma'am,
Is
in
it
that,
available,
will you give us
ma'am?
some
Yes, yes,
questions
it is
which can
available.
be found in
Everything
the.
is available. Everything is available after this class. If you really interest to take this book into a deeper study, then you can refer to Google. All characters, focalization, intertextuality, themes, allegory, everything is there in Google. Just have a look at it. You will understand everything. But my request to all of you is that please read the chapter-wise summary of the novel first. Chapter-wise summary of the novel. Whether you read the text or not doesn't matter. But the way novel is learned, you have to read the detailed summary, chapter-wise summary, then total summary, and then assessment of characters, then plot, then crucial justification of title, all these things. It is done. It's done. So please refer to that. Okay. So
Thank
tomorrow
you,
I don't
ma'am.
think there is a class. I think you have a schedule of my class, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Tomorrow I don't think we have a class. We have on 6th, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, we will have the class on 6th.